I presume once we're confident we have everybody that we're expecting, we will lock the meeting.
Okay.
Would that prevent someone from joining as an attendee also? So I don't think we need to lock the meeting because we have our panelists, we have our panelists issue.
Okay. We are streaming.
Just so everyone will know, this is the 2-minute warning.
I presume once we're confident we have everybody that we're expecting, we will lock the meeting.
Okay.
That's us confirming that the stream is working on YouTube. Don't worry.
It's an attendee also.
Okay, wait a minute then. I need
Yeah, Andrea and I just needed to turn off our
We need
YouTube
to lock the
streams.
meeting because we have our panelists. We have our panelists issue.
how do I, okay,
Just hit the mute button on the
Yeah.
YouTube playback. Yeah.
I got it. Thank you.
So just a quick question, if I may, David, should we be locking a public meeting?
I'm sorry, I'm in the midst of fire sirens here. I couldn't hear your question.
Or Allison, should we be locking a public meeting?
The answer is no, and we won't.
Are all the commissioners and staff ready to roll?
We are.
Let's
Okay.
roll.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to call this remote meeting of the WMSC to order with my remote gavel. Call to order. Would like to note that this meeting is being recorded as well as streamed live for the public. Ms. Fultz, do we have a quorum for today's meeting?
Yes, we do.
Thank you. We will begin with our safety message from Program Specialist, Mr. Richard Davis, who is our safety officer. Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Chair Hart. Even though we're not meeting in person, a focus on safety remains our role. While this is true for us all the time, some of you listening, this is particularly important in June, which is designated as National Safety Month. Each year in June, a few topics are highlighted. During this year, the topics are emotional health, ergonomics, building a safety culture, and driving. I'd like to briefly touch on each, excuse me. Good emotional health is something everyone should try to nurture. It's even more important in times like this. Take part in something you enjoy. Also, you may have to be a little bit creative these days. Reach out to friends and family and coworkers. If you need assistance, use resources like online support groups or employee assistance programs if those are available to you. If you find yourself or anyone you know in emotional crisis that is life-threatening, please call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-8255. Again, that's 1-800-273-8255. Our second topic is ergonomics. These are things that apply whether you're in the office or you're working at home remotely during social distancing. With more time on the computer, use the 20-20-20 rule to prevent eye strain. For every 20 minutes of screen time, look at something 20 feet away for 20 seconds. For your neck and back, remember to sit at an appropriate height and don't slouch. For your legs, do not dangle your feet. Get up and stretch every once in a while. If you're lifting something, please don't forget to bend your knees and lift with your legs and not your back. And now for my favorite, safety culture. Why is this my favorite? This is where you get the entire team involved. It's a side-to-side, up and down approach where everyone from the boots on the ground to top management has a shared vision and responsibility towards the ideas and implementation of safety. How is this accomplished, you ask? This is accomplished through open lines of communications, a fair, non-punitive reporting system, providing training, and leading by example, which is something that we at the WMSC take pride in doing. The final focus of this National Safety Month is safe driving. Never operate a vehicle while impaired or distracted. Being impaired not only means alcohol, but also includes some prescription or over-the-counter drugs and medications. This can include drowsy driving. Did you know driving while tired has similar effects on the body as being intoxicated? And remember, distracted driving includes more than just cell phones or electronic devices. It also includes eating, reading, shaving, or even applying cosmetics. Please take these things into consideration as you go about your daily routines. And remember, always think safety. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. David. We need all the help we can get in these unprecedented circumstances to handle these different situations in the most appropriate way. The next item on the agenda is the minutes of the May 12 meeting. Commissioner Farrar-Dyke, the microphone is yours.
Thank you. The minutes were posted for your review. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? If not, I move approval of May 12th minutes as circulated. Is there a second?
I would second.
Commissioner Rush has seconded. I will ask our General Counsel, Allison Fultz, to conduct the roll call vote.
Chairman Hart,
Approve.
Commissioner Bob,
Aye.
Commissioner Contestable,
Approve.
Commissioner Farrar-Dyke,
Approve.
Commissioner Hull,
Approve.
alternate Commissioner Rush,
Approve.
alternate Commissioner Al-Khatib. Thank you very much.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Farrar-Dyke. Now moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is public comments. We provide an opportunity for public comments at each of our meetings, and we will now ask if any members of the public who have joined our Zoom webinar would like to speak. If you would like to speak, please use the raise hand feature in the Zoom link, and our staff will unmute one person at a time. Each person will have a maximum of 2 minutes. I would also like to remind everyone, including those of you watching on YouTube, that you can always report any concerns through our website, WMSC.gov, through our social media channels like Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, or by email. I will pause now for a moment to see if we have any public comments. Ms. Hogan, do you have any indication of anyone who wants to speak?
No, Commissioner Hart, I see no hands raised.
Okay, thank you. We will now continue with the next agenda item, which is remarks from me. I would like to start by welcoming everyone to the June public meeting of the WMSC. But before we begin, I would like to make a statement on behalf of the commission about 2 issues that are now before us in unprecedented ways: COVID and police violence. As our nation is, and this message, by the way, will be posted on Twitter after the meeting. As our nation is struggling in the throes of 2 horrific occurrences, COVID-19 and police violence against people of color, the Washington Metrorail Safety Commission would like to express its views on both issues. Regarding COVID-19, The WMSC extends its sympathies and condolences to the families and friends of nearly 100.
Commissioner Hart, you're muted. You're muted.
I'm sorry. How much did I miss?
Not that much. You can restart. Uh-oh.
It was right after you said you extended your sympathies regarding COVID.
Okay, you're muted again, Commissioner Hart.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Regarding COVID-19, the WMSC extends its sympathies and condolences to the families and friends of nearly 120,000 people who have passed away as of today, and that number continues to rise, and to many more who have suffered either medically because of the virus itself or financially because of the economic shutdown in response to the virus. We support our nation working together, paying attention to the public health and financial experts, and learning from this event that is unprecedented in recent history in order to emerge stronger than ever. The WMSC acknowledges and supports Metro's initiatives to create a safe traveling environment for the public and a safe work environment for Metro's employees. And we will do all we can as WMSC within our sphere of influence to help generate this positive outcome. Regarding the police violence, we at the WMSC stand in solidarity with the majority in this country and with much of the world against systemic racism. Violence and hatred cannot be tolerated in our society. The terrible and unnecessary death of George Floyd and many before him, and still more since, is beyond description and belief. We must stand together to assure that such tragic events are never repeated. We will not be silent. Racial oppression of all types, including by police, makes it much more difficult for those who are oppressed to pursue legitimate opportunities that, if properly pursued, could benefit both themselves and our society as a whole. Moreover, people who are denied positive and legitimate opportunities by racial oppression are more likely to pursue undesirable or unlawful endeavors that will be an injurious and costly drain on our society. Hence, racial oppression is not only immoral, it undermines society as a whole by discouraging desirable, productive behavior and encouraging undesirable behavior. That lose-lose outcome is unacceptable, and WMSC will do all we can within our sphere of influence to eliminate racial oppression and its adverse effects. So I want to thank the commissioners. That completes the statement. I want to thank the commissioners for joining in on making the statement, and it's up close and personal to me because every time I go out the door, I wonder, what if I'm misidentified as some people have been and something horrible happens to me because they thought I was someone else? Henry Louis Gates, a noted professor at Harvard, lost his house keys and was confronted by the police after a neighbor reported somebody's trying to break in. He was trying to get into his own house and he was confronted by the police. So what if I walk out without my keys someday? What about public gatherings of people in a restaurant or other public space that causes people to call the police because of this public gathering? There have probably been police calls on people trying to break into their house who were white people, but typically that's less likely to get the call in the first place and less likely to have a confrontational police response. Likewise, in restaurants, there may have been people who complained about people making too much noise in restaurants that were white, and maybe that generated a police response. But how often did that result in an adversarial outcome? So it's up close and personal to me, and that's why I appreciate the board agreeing to put out this public statement of the commission to show our position on these issues. So thank you very much for taking the time to do that. Again, the statement will be out on Twitter. So moving on to our agenda, we have a significant agenda today. During today's meeting, we will hear about several safety investigations, including the final report on the October 7th, 2019 collision near Farragut West stations. We will also get an update on CAPS concerning the Rail Operations Control Center and hear details about WMSC's audit of Metrorail roadway worker protection program. We also have the WMSC's first annual operations report, first annual WMATA safety report, and several other resolutions on the agenda. Dr. Meyer, do you have any opening remarks?
Thank you. Yes, I do, though nothing as poignant as yours.
First, I'm going to apologize if a fire alarm goes off. There is no emergency where I live, but they are testing the fire alarm system, and it's been rather loud in the last few minutes. So if it returns, I'll need to take a break from making my remarks. But with fingers crossed, as you noted, we have a lot on our agenda today, which is an indication of the hard work and dedication of our entire diverse team, even in these challenging times. We continue our steps to protect our own staff's health and safety with additional focus on accomplishing our work through remote data collection and remote meetings such as this one. The WMSC Compact plays an important role in this because it requires Metrorail to provide us with unfettered access to employees and information, including access to electronic systems and databases. One of our major focuses remains safety concerns in the Rail Operations Control Center. As you know, we issued findings in December and again last month that require Metrorail corrective actions. Metrorail executive and board leadership provided a promising letter in response to our findings last month, but we continue to have concerns about deficiencies in the formal corrective action plan proposals that are being submitted. We are also concerned about resistance to change from some members of management. The corrective action plans must provide specifics on how safety improvements will be implemented and sustained to fully address the serious issues that we've identified. We are also discovering additional concerns about the ROC as we continue our audit work. And Ms. Samara Singha will provide an update on this issue later in today's meeting. We did see the importance of Metrorail backup facilities for the ROC, the control center, in the May 27th fire at Metro's headquarters. The ROC was operating from the Jackson Graham building, the headquarters building at that time, and had to be switched back to the Carmen Turner facility in Landover. Instances like this are one of the reasons we have safety oversight responsibility for all property owned, leased, operated, or otherwise used by Metrorail, not just the stations and the tracks. The fire on the top floor of the Metro headquarters building caused significant damage, not only to that floor, but also to all floors below and above the ground floor. Some of the damage to lower floors was due to soot and water damage from the fire response. We had a staff member respond, and he received a briefing on the spot from Metro's chief safety officer, and I would like to commend WMATA for its transparency that day. The exact source of the fire is under investigation, but DC fire investigators have determined that the fire was accidental, not intentional. The fire was electrical in nature, and it appears to have been started in an office on the 8th floor. Metrorail has informed us that the fire itself did not damage main servers or compromise the integrity of related critical data or communication services, but many computers or other systems on the upper floors remain turned off. Floors 2 through 8 are closed for several more weeks. Many employees based in the building had already been working remotely due to the current health emergency at least part of the time, but they're not allowed in the building at all right now. JGV remains closed indefinitely to all but ROC and critical maintenance and cleanup employees and contractors. Other Metrorail employees have had limited remote access to certain information since the fire due to a lack of ability to remotely access their desktop computers. This has also affected the ability for some staff to access certain recordings. As far as rail service, due to the health emergency, Metrorail remains at a significantly reduced service level for at least a few more months. The first initial service increases are expected in August or September, but right now, Metrorail projects a return to more normal service levels next spring at the earliest. More than a dozen stations remain closed indefinitely. Service frequencies are reduced and operating hours are also reduced. Metrorail is beginning the process of checking at least some of those closed stations to confirm whether individual stations are ready to reopen. The WMSC will be monitoring those efforts. Overall, Metrorail says they have increased cleaning in recent weeks and they're evaluating different disinfecting products. They believe that they're adequately supplied with cleaning supplies and face coverings. Metrorail's older rail cars remain in rail yards with only the 7000 series trains in service. We are looking into Metrorail's plans to bring these older rail cars back into service when they're needed. We have learned that Metrorail is now beginning to power up and resuming regular periodic inspections on about half of its 2000 and 3000 series rail cars. The first 60 of the 180 2000 and 3000 series cars are currently in the West Falls Churchyard, have been powered up and brought up to an idle mode over the last few weeks. Idle mode puts the cars in a position to be used since circuit breakers are flipped back on and other key features like the vehicle monitoring systems are reactivated. Those cars are now being repositioned in the yard at times and are no longer sitting still. This is part of Metro's preparation for possible service increases from the current reduced levels in the coming months. Our subject matter expert for vehicles continues to examine this issue and Metrorail's plans for car storage and use. Metrorail also has limited maintenance activities to those deemed essential. To address some of that work, Metrorail plans rotating shutdowns of numerous track segments this summer, in addition to the summer-long shutdown of the Orange and Silver lines west of Ballston. Right now, the Yellow Line bridge over the Potomac is shut down. This week, the Green Line is also shut down between Anacostia and L'Enfant Plaza stations. Next week, Metrorail plans to shut down the Yellow and Green lines between L'Enfant Plaza and Shaw Howard University stations. We have safety oversight responsibilities for this work in the Orange and Silver Line shutdown area. Particularly for the Orange and Silver Line work, we are working closely with Metrorail to ensure all required safety certification steps are followed. After issues we identified during last summer's shutdown, Metrorail took a significant step this year to implement a Spanish language roadway worker protection training class. RWP is the primary method of ensuring safety on Metrorail's right-of-way, so providing a complete, clear, and understandable class for all workers is critical to the safety of workers and contractors. The actual work in this area is progressing, and Metrorail is optimistic that the stations west of Ballston will be open by Labor Day. During this Orange Line platform work, Metrorail is also facilitating automatic train control system tie-in work for the Silver Line Phase 2 project. That tie-in work is scheduled to start as soon as tomorrow at Wheelie-Reston East Station and is expected to be completed this summer. The WMSC is monitoring this work as part of our role in the safety certification of the Silver Line extension to Dulles and Loudoun County. The actual work is the responsibility of the Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority, its contractors in WMATA, but we at WMSC must sign off on the safety certification and verification report before the line can open for revenue service. We've taken an active role on this front since even before our certification last year, and we continue to proactively convey our expectations and requirements to MWAT and WMATA. For example, we are finalizing a fire life safety assessment of the project that identifies areas for improvement. Overall, this assessment shows that most major fire life safety issues have been addressed as part of the design and construction process, but there are a few areas where changes will be required, as well as several recommended changes that could also reduce risks. We appreciate MWA's commitment to addressing these issues as open action items. On a broader note, we are monitoring Metrorail's Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan process. The FTA's PTASP deadline was originally next month, but that has effectively been delayed to the end of the year. WMATA has a draft agency safety plan that they are revising, and we're working with them on those revisions. We expect to ask you as commissioners to review and vote on whether to accept this plan sometime this fall. I also have a few WMSC staff changes that we can report today. First, I would like to thank Chris DeFata for his exceptional service to the WMSC. He left us earlier this month for another opportunity after 2 years with our organization. He was most recently serving as our manager of compliance and oversight, and we wish Chris every success. I'd like to welcome 2 new staff members since our last public meeting. Brackett Smith is our new attorney advisor and government relations lead. He will serve as our in-house counsel and our FOIA officer. He joins us after nearly 4 years as assistant general counsel at the DC Council, where he assisted with legislative and legal issues. And he also served as FOIA officer there. He's also worked at the DC Department of Housing and Community Development and as a bill drafter for the West Virginia State Legislature. Davis Raddick just joined us this week as well. He is our new audit manager. Davis also has a legal background, and he comes to us from Hannon Law Group. He is also a member of the Arlington Transportation Commission, an advisory group to the county board. We are proud of his service on that volunteer citizen commission, and it poses no conflict of interest. With the addition of Brackett and Davis, we have now successfully onboarded 5 staff members during our time of remote work, and I'm very proud of that accomplishment. That's all I have, Chair Hart.
Thank you, Dr. Meyer, for that comprehensive report. We will now move to the next item on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. The commissioners have had the opportunity to review Safety Event Investigation Report E20130. This report covers a situation where an individual intentionally placed themselves in the path of a train. Although by FTA regulations, this is classified as an accident, the event was not accidental. Consequently, we have placed this report on a consent agenda. Does any commissioner wish to ask questions about the report? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adopt this report.
I would so move.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you. The motion is made and seconded. All those in favor, signal with a hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Are any opposed? Okay, thank you. The motion passes unanimously and the consent agenda report is adopted and will be placed on our public website in the coming days. We will now move on to other final safety event investigations that are up for adoption today. So to that, Ms. Samara Singh, the microphone is yours.
Thank you, Chair Hart. We have 4 other investigation reports to present today. Just so the commissioners and others know, I'm holding until the presentation is displayed.
You guys not see it on my screen?
It just came up.
First, today we are presenting a final investigation report into one of the most serious incidents to occur on the Metrorail system in the last few years. In this incident, one train ran into the back of another near the Farragut West station last October. This caused substantial damage to the trains and caused major service disruptions for riders. Had riders been on one of these trains, it is likely that there would have been serious injuries. Our team responded to the accident scene and followed up with participation in interviews, data analysis, and other steps. Shortly after that collision, the WMSC issued 3 findings requiring corrective actions from Metrorail. From the initial investigation, an engineering summit convened by the WMSC and information in a November 4th follow-up meeting, the WMSC required all active rail cars to be retrofitted with a stop and proceed mode awareness tool and required Metrorail to develop additional corrective actions to prevent the unauthorized movement of trains without speed commands. The WMSC also required Metrorail to do more to prevent the use of electronic devices that can pose distractions to operators and to ensure that those devices will be collected and analyzed in all future investigations. As the investigation has continued over the following months, we have learned more about the accident. I will turn to our subject matter expert for operations, Mr. Bruce Walker, to present the details on what this investigation found.
Thank you, Ms. Samara Singh. The collision occurred around 12:48 a.m. on Monday, October 7, 2019. Metrorail had stayed open late due to a Washington Nationals playoff game that Sunday night. Both trains involved were 3000 series consist that were out of revenue service at the time of the collision. The trains were being used as gap trains for the night, helping with baseball crowds. Each of the 6-car trains sustained substantial damage. The collision also led to a lengthy cleanup and investigation effort that disrupted the Blue Line, Orange, and Silver Line service across multiple rush hours due to the single tracking and reduced service. We will now walk through some of the details. At the time of the collision, train 700 was moving at approximately 11 miles per hour from Foggy Bottom towards Farragut West. The train was accelerating at the time of the collision with the master controller in a P4 power mode. Train 700 had lost speed commands, indicating the train operator was required to stop and not proceed without explicit permission from the Rail Operations Control Center. Vehicle data shows that from the time train 700 lost speed commands at 12:45 and 56 seconds to the time of the collision, the train operator accelerated 3 times to more than 15 miles per hour, triggering automatic emergency braking. These moves took the train nearly 600 feet forward without proper approval. The train operator then moved the train again, reaching 4 miles per hour, then stopped about 320 feet from train 755, the train that would be struck. Train 700 was accelerating for a 5th time in less than 3 minutes at the time of the collision. The train operator accelerated around a restricted view curve, and the train increased speed from 9 miles per hour to 11 miles per hour in the final 69 feet before the impact. Train 755 had been stationary in the tunnel for 7 minutes and 52 seconds, waiting for another train to clear ahead. The other train, train 794, was beyond the Farragut West Station platform. The collision point was about 600 feet from the Farragut West Station. The front of the train that was struck was about 100 feet from the Farragut West platform. Both train operators were injured. They were treated at GW Hospital and were released several hours later. The Rail Operations Control Center did not immediately identify that there had been a collision, and the train operator of the moving train, train 700, did not immediately report the collision. Recordings of the ROCC data show that there was a momentary loss of third rail power at the time of the collision, but that brief indication was not recognized at the time. About 3 minutes after the collision, the train operator of train 755 reported that the train had been struck from behind by an unknown source. The ROCC then contacted the striking train, train 700. The operator then acknowledged the collision. The Rail Operations Information Center, a desk within ROCC, notified DC's 911 dispatchers approximately 6 minutes after the collision that an EMS response was needed for train operator injuries. Approximately 8 minutes after the collision, the ROCC de-energized third rail power on track 1 where the collision occurred. 2 minutes later, 10 minutes after the collision, each train operator told the ROCC that they were injured and would not be able to get out of their trains to do a damage inspection. The train operator of train 755 was lying on the floor of the cab with back pain when the supervisors arrived. The walk-around was conducted by a supervisor approximately 18 minutes after the collision. DC Fire and EMS arrived approximately 22 minutes after the crash. The rail supervisor who conducted the walk-around found notable damage that blocked access to some cars. The emergency exit doors seen here at the rear of the car could not be opened due to the ceiling damage, which means this door would not have been available to riders had there been any, and that the train operator would not have been able to pass through the train on board. The supervisor found the two trains about 6 to 7 feet apart following the collision. All of the cars on each train were squeezed together except for the cars that separated from train 755. Among other things, the anti-climbers engaged on a number of cars. These are safety features designed to limit or prevent telescoping of cars in collisions, as happened in the fatal 2009 Red Line collision. The collision forced the first two cars of the stationary train to separate from the remaining cars. The two sections ended up about 1.5 feet apart. As you can see in this photo, one of the couplers was pushed all the way in by the force of the collision. The most damaged, though, was the lead car of the striking train, car 3008. Metrorail is repairing or plans to repair 6 of the 12 cars involved in the crash at an estimated cost of approximately $135,000. The 6 other cars involved are effectively totaled. Metrorail is not planning to repair cars 3008, 3009, 3206, 3207, 3120, or 3121 due to the cost of the repairs. The cars involved here were 3000 series cars, so they were older models, but the average price of a new 7000 series car was about $2 million. So the total damage in this incident, based on a replacement cost, is estimated to be more than $12 million. Damage included buckled floors and ceilings, at least one car that hit the top of the tunnel, the damage to ventilation, propulsion, and coupler systems. To remove the cars from the area, windows were removed so that the straps could be used to secure under-car equipment. Sharp metal pieces of the damaged cars also had to be cut or grinded to allow the car to be taken to the Brentwood yard for additional analysis. The cars with the most damage were removed slowly using diesel-powered work vehicles. Other cars were coupled to a separate train that was brought into the area and moved slowly using regular third rail power. We'll now turn back to information obtained from the interviews with the operators, walking through the accident from the start. So, in an interview after the accident, the train operator of train 755, the train that was struck, reported being stopped at the time of the collision with 0 speed commands and a train in view ahead. Train 794 was the train stopped ahead. The operator of train 755 remembered the train going dark as it was jolted forward. A piece of metal flew past the operator. The collision rendered the car-borne radio inoperative. The operator eventually used the handheld radio to contact the RLCC. In an interview, the operator said the 3-minute delay in reporting to the Rail Operations Control Center was because the operator was processing what had happened. Train 700, the operator of the striking train the train operator of the striking train, train 700, became a train operator in 2005. In September of 2006, the train operator was disqualified due to several safety events in 2005 and 2006. These include a collision, a red signal overrun, and 2 station overruns. At the time of the disqualification, Red Line Division Management determined that the operator would be permitted to return from bus operator to train operator after a period of no less than 18 months. In 2010, the operator was reinstated. In 2011, the operator had a red signal violation. The train operator was also involved in a derailment in 2013, failed to report a station overrun in 2015, and was also suspended in 2015 for operating the train with the cab door open while talking to a customer. Supervisors conducted 9 ride checks on the operator between July and October 2019 with no issues reported. The investigation concluded that the operator did not follow procedures requiring safety stops, did not follow rules governing train movement without speed commands, failed to report the accident, and provided false statements during the investigation. In interviews and written statements, the train operator provided conflicting information. The train operator also refused to provide a cell phone to Metro Transit Police as part of the investigation. However, cell phone records for that phone and numbers associated with that phone indicated the phone was in use at and around the time of the collision. That said, it could not be proven that the operator was in possession of the phone before or during the collision. The train was accelerating at the time of the collision. The brakes were not applied. The investigation also examined potential concerns about fatigue. A fatigue review found the operator of train 700 had an elevated risk of impairment due to night work and an unpredictable schedule on this particular day. The train operator reported less than 6 hours of sleep, which was interrupted by a phone call asking the operator to come in early to work. The off-duty period on that day was 9 hours. Metrorail's actions as a result of the findings we issued last fall and Metro's internal investigation include the train operator of the striking train, train 700, no longer works for WMATA and is not eligible to be rehired. A memo was sent to operations staff regarding train operations when there is a loss of speed command. Metrorail plans to implement the new stop and proceed mode awareness tool on all cars in service by the end of this calendar year. Metrorail will address the emergency response efforts and opportunity for improvement. I'll now turn it back over to our CEO, Dr. David Meyer, to conclude this presentation.
Thank you very much. Nice job. This is an extremely serious event that highlights several significant issues facing the Metrorail system. The accident was avoidable if proper procedures and protections were in place. This event demonstrates the risks that arose from a long-term failure to address the unauthorized movement of trains with zero speed commands. We issued that finding back in November, and Metrorail must move expeditiously to implement fixes. There are areas of the system where speed commands have regularly dropped out for years without repair. That has contributed to a culture where proper procedures for movement with zero speed commands have been frequently ignored. We need this to change. To be clear, this was not just a low-speed collision involving trains that were out of service. This was the most significant collision on Metrorail's mainline tracks in years. If there had been passengers on either of those trains, there likely would have been serious injuries. Our full team responded to this accident because of the severity of the event, and we will ensure that Metrorail takes the proper steps needed to significantly reduce the likelihood of any similar event occurring in the future. Thank you, and we're happy to take any questions. Chair Hart,
Thanks to both of you for that excellent report. And I just have one question before I turn it over to the other commissioners, and that is, does a zero command mean no command, or does it mean a command to have a speed of zero?
That's been a long-running issue. Bruce, can you talk to that?
Sure. A zero speed command is a safety feature that's built into the rail car. So if the train senses another vehicle, a break in the rail ahead, it is going to zero the speed commands, forcing the train to come to a stop. There are reasons why a train would need to move with zero speed commands, but it requires permission from the ROCC prior to trains moving. Does that answer your question, Chairman
Yes,
Hart?
so a number appears in the window and the number is zero versus not having any command at all.
That is correct.
I see. Okay. Let me open it up to any of the other commissioners. Any of the other commissioners have any questions regarding this report?
Well, I don't
Commissioner
have a question, just a comment that I was very impressed with the thoroughness of the investigative report by staff regarding this very serious circumstance. And again, kudos to staff for a job well done on the report.
And we appreciate that, but we do share the credit with Metrorail Safety Department investigators, who are the first drafters of the report, of any report like this. And then we provided extensive review and comments back to the Safety Department, and they finalized the report under our direction and oversight. So we thank you for that, but don't want to miss the opportunity to also recognize them for their hard work.
And thanks for the clarification.
Well, thank you. And I concur with Commissioner Hull, and I am happy to hear about the extent of cooperation between us and WMATA. That's very promising. That's very helpful. Commissioner Contestable.
Yeah, could you comment on the stop and proceed mode awareness tool that was referenced that's to be implemented by the end of the year? Do you know any more about what that does and why that would be helpful in this case?
Maybe I'll start, and then either Bruce Walker or Manuel Lopez could fill in any technical details. Stop and proceed mode, I would say that the rail system was designed to be operated in automatic mode. And the idea was that the trains would always move under automatic speed control in reference to speed commands, except in essentially dark territory like yards, where stop and proceed mode would be necessary. Stop and proceed mode over the years, for the last 11 years, the system has been operated entirely in manual mode, and the use of stop and proceed on mainline tracks has grown more and more common as these areas with zero speed commands have proliferated. The mode awareness tool just simply makes it crystal clear to the operator and on the VMS recording that stop and proceed mode is being used. In other words, when the train comes to a full and complete stop in response to a zero speed command or a loss of speed commands, if the operator has appropriate permission, he or she may take a point of power, and the train will move as long as it's not accelerated beyond 15 miles an hour. That is using stop and proceed mode. With the mode awareness tool now, the operator is presented on the display panel with a random digit and has to actually key that digit into the control panel, which is supposed to ensure that the operator is aware that they're using the stop and proceed mode. And it also lays down a marker on the VMS data recording for subsequent safety review or auditing. Manuel or Bruce, feel free to correct me if I said anything that was wrong, and by all means jump in if you think there's anything.
That was well stated, Dr. Meyer.
Yeah, well stated. Good job.
I understand. Thank you.
Thank you for that question, Commissioner Contestable. Are there any other questions from the commissioners?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please. Commissioner Bob?
Yes, thank you. I did see in the report, it indicates that this operator had some prior disciplinary actions, or did I recall?
Yes, that is correct. The operator was previously a train operator, and based on the violations that occurred, he was removed from train operations for a period of no less than 18 months, but then returned to train operations, and then had several new violations that the final violation being this accident.
Okay, thank you. And but the operator is no longer employed with the system, or?
Well, from the conversations with WMATA, the train operator has been removed from WMATA and is not eligible to hold a position at the authority.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bob. And following up on that, are there guidelines regarding how many infractions and what types of infractions a person can have before they are excluded altogether? Or is it completely a judgment call, or how does that work?
To speak very lightly on the issue, there is a union arbitrated agreement based on a number of infractions that they have agreed to with the disciplinary matrix. Once they reach that number, they're then disqualified for a period of not less than 18 months, but they're eligible to reapply, and they'll have to take the training again.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions from any of the commissioners? Then I believe we're ready for a motion for adoption of this report. But let me give a procedural note on how we're going to do this. I would ask each member making a motion or seconding a motion to also say your name at that time so that we can properly record the details. And we will also ask you to state your vote out loud during the roll call to ensure that we record the full vote accurately. So is there any motion to approve this report from any commissioner?
Motion to approve, contestable.
Okay, Commissioner Contestable moves to approve it. Any motion, any second of that motion?
I second it.
Okay, I would now ask General Counsel Allison Fultz to conduct our recorded vote and see what our vote is on that motion now that it's been made and seconded. You're muted. Ms. Fultz, you are muted.
Thank you, Chairman Hart. How's that?
That's much better.
All right, I'll pause briefly after I call each name. Commissioner Hart,
Approve.
Commissioner Bob,
Approved.
Commissioner Contestable,
Approved.
Commissioner Farrar Dyke,
Approved.
Commissioner Hull,
Approved.
Alternate Commissioner Al-Khatib,
Approved.
and Alternate Commissioner Rush.
Approved.
And I believe that is everybody. Thank you very much. The motion passes, carries rather.
Thank you. We will move. Thank you for the commission for the great report and for the commissioner's engagement in that report. We will now move on to the next investigation report. Mr. Jermaine Walker, our subject matter expert for track and structures, will present the next report. Mr. Walker.
Thank you, Chair Hart. This investigation report covers a serious injury to a Metrorail employee on the blue and yellow line tracks south of Reagan National Airport. On March 4th, 2020, an IT department employee was escorting contractors in the area between the Reagan National Station and the future Potomac Yard Station. As the employee was setting up track protection around 2:35 in the a.m., the employee tripped on debris near the safety walk while crossing from track 1 to track 2. This employee continued working, but later went to the hospital where doctors identified a broken ankle. The event was not reported to the maintenance operations center. An IT supervisor did not notify IT department management of the event until around 4:32 in the AM. It was not reported to other departments as required until 3:15 PM after the employee reported the outcome of the hospital visit. The investigation finds the IT supervisor was not familiar with injury reporting or post-accident testing requirements. As you can see in the photographs here taken after the event was properly reported, there is debris in the area. There is also a significant step required to reach the safety walk. Although these photos were taken in daylight, the actual injury happened that night. The investigation concludes that IT department supervisors are not familiar with the required reporting procedures for accidents. After this event, WMATA Safety Department provided instruction on those procedures at a local safety committee meeting. The investigation also concludes that the height of the step from the safety walk to the ground was not highlighted in the job safety briefing. Situational awareness is crucial to safety on the right-of-way. Metrorail's IT department will review and assess work instructions to identify and mitigate hazards.
Thank you, Mr. Walker, for that report. Are there any questions regarding this report from any of the commissioners? Hearing none, is there a motion to adopt investigation report E20125?
Mike Rush, so move.
Commissioner Rush moved. Any second?
Greg Hull, second.
Thank you, Commissioner Hall. I will now ask General Counsel Al Fultz to conduct our recorded vote.
Thank you, Chairman Hart. Commissioner Bob,
Hey, aye.
Commissioner Contestable,
Approved.
Commissioner Farrar Dyke,
Approved.
Chairman Hart,
Approved.
Vice Chair Hull,
Approved.
Alternate Commissioner Al-Khatib,
Approved.
Alternate Commissioner Rush.
Approved.
Thank you very much. The motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Fultz. Much appreciated. Mr. Walker, I believe you have another report, so the microphone is yours.
Yes, Chair Hart. This event, E20085, a high rail vehicle derailment at switch B9965 at the edge of Brentwood Rail Yard. For those who don't know, a high rail vehicle is a vehicle that can be operated on the road with tires, but that also has wheels that can be used to move the vehicle on railroad tracks. The derailment happened on February 14th, 2020 at approximately 12:48 in the AM. There were no injuries. The investigation finds the vehicle was moving in reverse with the operator using a rear view camera as the primary method of observing the track and the direction of travel. A utility interlocking operator in training had given the vehicle permission to proceed. However, the trainee then moved the switch to the alignment and the vehicle was about 20 feet short of the switch. As the next vehicle passed through the switch, the trailing axle suddenly lifted and derailed after climbing the closed switch points. The investigation finds that the utility interlocking operator in training had assumed when signals dropped out that the high rail vehicle had cleared the switch. The interlocking operator then reset the switch for a waiting maintenance vehicle. The switch was aligned for the route of the waiting prime mover and no longer aligned for the route this high rail vehicle operator had been given permission for. These photos show the wheels of the high rail vehicle 3 to 6 inches off the rails. The image on the top right shows the rail alignment. The investigation concludes that the derailment resulted because the interlocking operator trainee set a route for an adjacent track move without waiting for a positive radio communication verifying that the high rail unit was clear. The interlocking operator trainee moved the switch without radio communication confirming the location of the high rail vehicle. The investigation also finds that the interlocking operator who was training the utility interlocking operator trainee failed to provide adequate oversight. The high rail vehicle operator also failed to identify proper switch alignment for the move. Metrorail will retrain all personnel involved in this event.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Before I open it to questions from the other commissioners, I'm going to ask, was the training operator present at the time and was in a way that it would allow him or her to see what was going on?
Can you, are you referring to the interlocking trainees trainer?
Yes.
From the report, we know that the trainer was close. We don't know exactly what the trainer was doing during this time of the accident.
Okay, I'm just wondering what kind of responsibility the trainer has to make sure that the training is proceeding as it needs to be.
In my experience, Chairman, the trainer will always be with you every step of the way, and you wouldn't make a move unless the trainer has authorized it as a trainee.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from any of the other commissioners? Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adopt investigation report E20085. Anyone move to approve it?
Hull, so moved.
Mr. Hull, so moved. Any seconds?
This is Bob.
Okay, Commissioner Bob seconds. I will now ask General Counsel Fultz to conduct our recorded vote. Counsel Fultz?
Thank you, Chairman Hart. Commissioner Bob,
Approved.
Commissioner Contestable,
Approved.
Secretary Treasurer Farrar Dyke,
Approved.
Chairman Hart,
Approved.
Vice Chairman Hull,
Approved.
Alternate Commissioner Al-Khatib,
Approved.
and Alternate Commissioner Rush.
Approved.
Thank you very much. The motion carries.
Thank you. We now have one more investigative report up for adoption, this time from another Mr. Walker, this time Mr. Bruce Walker. Mr. Walker, the microphone is yours.
Thank you, Chair Hart. So accident report E20043 covers a train striking a customer at the courthouse station on the Orange and Silver line during the evening rush hour on January 23rd of 2020. The investigation and the closed circuit television footage suggests that the customer had some type of medical emergency, then fell onto track 1 as train 616 pulled into the station. It was a 6-car train made up of 3000 series rail cars. The video footage shows another customer attempting to stop the person's fall by grabbing the person's scarf. However, the person still fell. Platform edge lights were flashing at the time. The train operator hit the mushroom to activate the emergency brakes. Third rail power was brought down, and the Arlington County Fire Department responded. Trains single track through the area during the emergency response. The customer was alert when taken from the station to the hospital. Metrorail does not plan any specific corrective actions in response to this event.
Thank you, Mr. Walker, for that report. My first question is, what can you tell me about the process of turning off the third rail power? How well did that work in this circumstance?
That was not really addressed in the report. They did say that it happened within a timely time period. The moment that the central control was notified, they did bring down third rail power. I cannot speak to the exact amount of time that it took for it to come down.
Okay, but so that tells me that the process occurred satisfactorily as far as you were concerned.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from any of the other commissioners regarding this report? Okay, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adopt investigation report E20043. Is there a motion to approve, to adopt?
Mike Rush. So moved.
Alternate Commissioner Rush, move to approve. Is there a second of that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner Farrar Dyke seconds. I'll now ask General Counsel Fultz to conduct a recorded vote.
Thank you, Chairman Hart. Commissioner Bob,
Okay.
thank you. Commissioner Contestable,
Approve.
Secretary Treasurer Farrar Dyke,
Approved.
Chairman Hart,
Approve.
Vice Chairman Hall,
Approve.
Alternate Commissioner Al-Khatib, Alternate Commissioner Rush.
Approve.
Thank you very much. The motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much for that report and for the commissioner's engagement. Next item on the agenda is corrective action plans. For that, the microphone is yours, Ms. Sharmila Samar Singh.
Thank you, Chair Hart. Corrective action plans are designed to ensure continuous safety improvement at Metrorail. We wanted to update you on the development of several of these important plans. First, after several months of back and forth with Metrorail to ensure the plans will have the intended lasting impacts, we have approved the caps that will address the findings from the track audit we issued in February. These plans will ensure that there is a complete written set of protocols governing track maintenance practices and procedures. They will also set consistent requirements for verifying speed restrictions, provide all personnel with required quality control documents, standardize yard inspection forms, and implement version control, ensure that appropriate training is provided, ensure heat rides are properly conducted, ensure that rail lubricators are properly refilled, implement annual culvert inspections, provide regular review to ensure quality control checks are completed as required. We oversee Metrorail's implementation of these plans, and we will report back to you on the progress of these plans. We will move to close the caps only when we are satisfied the plans are fully implemented over the coming years. Second, we continue a significant focus on the safety problems in the Rail Operations Control Center, or ROCC. As you know, we issued a finding in December directing Metrorail to address the dangerous dysfunction that we identified during a December smoke event that was eerily similar to the fatal 2015 smoke event near Lafont Plaza Station. We issued 3 additional findings in May based on additional audit work that directed Metrorail to address significant concerns about the power restoration process, uncoordinated remote manipulation of controller consoles, and a lack of training on the use of emergency ventilation fans. Last month, Metrorail outlined some initial steps they're taking on their own to address the issues we raised May 12th. But we remain concerned that their proposed corrective action plans fall short of what is required to create substantive and lasting change. Some Metrorail managers have suggested limiting management attendance at training that could address some of the dysfunction in the ROCC. For example, and are not yet invested in safety critical changes needed to the power restoration process. There does appear to be better understanding of the need for consistent, complete, and ongoing fan operations training. But we want to ensure that any changes are incorporated into a long-term requirement rather than just a one-time crash course addressing fans the controllers were not properly trained on how to use in the first place. We continue to focus on this issue with Metrorail leadership, and we continue to require revisions to the proposed corrective action plans to ensure that they capture all issues. Our month of investigative work on issues in the ROCC is not yet over, and we expect to identify additional significant issues that must be addressed. That concludes the overview of these caps. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Samar Singh. I just have one process question. Maybe it's too early in our existence yet to know this, but after we have approved the response to the cap, do we have a systematic process for making sure that they keep doing it so that if it washes out and falls by the wayside, that we can come back after it?
Chair Hart, yes. So there are several avenues that we utilize to ensure that the changes that they propose and the changes they implement as a result stick. So during the time that they are implementing these changes, we do monitor them. And there are various checkpoints throughout the interim stages of a implementation of the various actions behind a corrective action plan. So that is when the CAP is being developed and implemented. Post-implementation, we utilize those same metrics as a way of us conducting inspections. In this case, listening to audio recordings, observing various camera footage to understand, and also looking at various reports that demonstrate that various rules and procedures are being complied with within the ROCC environment. All of those avenues offer us a way to ensure that the corrective action plans that Metro commits to and then implements stick. And so I hope I answered your question comprehensively.
Yes, thank you. That was a very comprehensive answer. So let me open it up to any of the other commissioners and see if there are any questions regarding Ms. Samar Singh's report. Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Ms. Samar Singh. We will now move to the next agenda item, which is our most recent audit report. Dr. Meyer, do you have any introductory remarks regarding that audit?
Just a second, please. I've lost my place. Sorry about that. Yes. Chair Hart, our staff has been working hard to complete an audit of Metrorail's roadway worker protection, or RWP program. The RWP policies and procedures are the primary method of protecting employees, contractors in emergencies, first responders, and customers who must be on or near the tracks. There has been progress on this since the Federal Transit Administration raised concerns in 2015, but additional steps are required to address ongoing safety gaps in the roadway worker protection program. This is an especially important issue at Metrorail because 8 employees were struck and killed by oncoming trains between 2005 and 2010. In investigations of 2 of these deaths, the National Transportation Safety Board found that worker protection rules were lacking. In 2010, Metrorail introduced an overhauled RWP program. Additional significant updates were added around 2017 as well. I will now turn it over to Mr. Bruce Walker to summarize the audit's findings.
So on the positive side, Metrorail has dramatically increased compliance with RWP training and certification policies. Metrorail's written RWP requirements and policies are generally sound. Still, our audit showed there are at least pockets within WMATA where RWP rules are regularly not being followed. This could lead to injuries, accidents, or fatalities. In a number of these cases, there has been practical drift, with the actual actions in the field no longer matching established procedures. To ensure the safety of those on the track, we are issuing 11 findings requiring corrective action plans that will address shortfalls in policy, procedure, or implementation of the RWP program. Our observations demonstrate that some critical safety rules are being ignored, such as the placement of watchman lookouts at least 50 feet ahead of a work crew. This is required so that the watchman lookout can provide ample time for the crew to get out of the way of an approaching train. We also found that electrical safety warning equipment being used without current calibration, which could put workers at risk. Some workers are not meeting all personal protective equipment requirements because they're not wearing the proper reflective vest or are covering these vests with backpacks. A backpack also poses an additional risk of entrapment. On the training front, Metrorail has greatly improved compliance with its regular training and recertification requirements. However, Metrorail's higher level RWP training classes are lacking in consistency and practical exercises. The instructors for these classes are also not being given the opportunity to meet their own requirements for continued education and experience. Metrorail has also failed to follow its own policies requiring reviews of RWP rules on a regular basis and requiring the inclusion of the safety department and Metro Transit Police in the review of those rules. The departments were not aware of their responsibilities on those fronts. Clear communication is also essential for worker safety. Metrorail must create a clear definition of train and approach to an area where there's foul time, where foul time has been granted to workers. This will ensure that any train operator nearing the area is properly warned of the reason for a red signal ahead to achieve the intended redundant layer of protection. Metrorail will have 45 days to propose corrective action plans to address these issues. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners on the audit of the roadway worker protection program?
Chairman Hart, Greg Hull here.
Yes.
Not a question, but more of a comment. I did read through the full report, and I found the report to be very thorough and very well supported with the necessary documentation. So a job well done on the audit on roadway worker protection.
Well, thank you for that comment. Kudos to the staff for preparing a good report. I would like to ask Mr. Walker a question that may not be fair. It's a big picture question, and I'm just wondering, do you have any sense, any way of knowing how well the WMATA is doing in terms of roadway worker protection relative to other mass transit properties in the country? Is there any, do you have any sense of that?
I cannot speak to Metrorail in comparison to other rail transit systems. I will say that since the previous audit in 2016, Metrorail has made substantial improvements with their RWP department, bringing things into compliance, as they were a number of employees that were out of RWP compliance, and they have made substantial improvements over the last 3 years.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Mr. Walker. That's very good news. I appreciate that.
I might add too, just by way of observation, that you know, and others may have other thoughts, but placing yourself onto a rail property that is active is not really consistent with human nature. There are roadway worker protection is something that all rail systems know that they need to maintain an active focus on day to day. You know, the issue of, say, a watchman lookout who is supposed to have no other duties other than keeping the actual inspector or worker safe. It's just human nature to socialize and become engaged in the work task as opposed to the watchman lookout task. When I was in New York at the MTA, it certainly was the sort of thing that had to be constantly emphasized. And it's, RWP is the sort of thing that if management and leadership takes its eyes off that ball, we will see backsliding on any property. And the kinds of things that Metro struggles with are not unique to Metro. You know, that's just, this is a really important issue for the industry as a whole, and it's just important to remain focused on it. And it's a personal issue for me because when our own staff are on the tracks or in the tunnels conducting their work, the RWP program is what keeps us safe too.
Thank you. Those are very good points. And I would also add to that picture that complacency may sometimes play a role, especially if you've gone for a while without any employee injuries or fatalities due to being on or near the tracks. Then I would imagine that complacency plays a role, and that's a tough human challenge also, to get people to continue to be vigilant even when things have recently been fairly safe. Any other comments, questions, concerns from the commissioners regarding the roadway worker protection audit? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is annual reports. Dr. Meyer, the microphone is yours.
Thank you. I am proud to present to you all today our first annual reports. These reports are required by the WMSC Compact, but preparing them has really crystallized for me just how far we've really come as an organization. It is easy in our significant daily work and the steps forward we take every day to lose focus on the miles that we've run since Maryland, Virginia, DC, and the federal government created this organization. And local regional groups like the Council of Governments helped us enormously get up and running. Just to briefly explain the two reports, one is a report of our own annual operations, and the other is a report specifically focused on the safety of the WMATA rail system in 2019. The reports each focus on events in calendar year 2019. Upon adoption, both reports will be sent as required by law to leaders in DC, Maryland, and Virginia, and the federal government. And they will also be provided to WMATA leadership, including the board, and of course to members of the public. If I could speak briefly to the operations report, the WMSC had an extremely productive year that included taking over direct safety oversight for Metrorail, building a solid team, and advancing and expanding our expertise in issuing our first findings and directives. As the only standalone state safety oversight agency in the country, we have significant responsibilities that we take extremely seriously. In addition to our safety oversight responsibilities, we are also responsible for our own finances, procurement, human resources, accounting, grant management, and all other administrative functions. Our first annual operations report tells the story of the WMSC's creation and of the organization stepping up into all of its new roles. We will build on these milestones for years to come as we work with Metrorail to improve safety for riders, workers in the region. I'd like to thank Virginia, Maryland, DC, and the federal leadership for helping to make all of this possible. And again, we thank COG, the Council of Governments, for the crucial support as well. And I'd also like to thank the commissioners for entrusting me and our dedicated team with the responsibility for the region and the nation's capital.
Well, thank you for that. And I would also, you did the hard work. So we'd like to thank you and your staff for getting this up and running, from taking it over from the previous overseers and doing such an amazing job of doing that takeover and getting us up and running and doing it all under budget and within time, as they say. So let me open it up to see if there are any commissioners any questions from the commissioners on the annual operations report. Any commissioner questions on that? Okay, before I turn it over back to Dr. Meyer for the safety report, I would like to offer some initial comments. Since our creation, the WMSC has worked tirelessly to build expertise and create a new safety oversight and enforcement framework on one of the busiest and most important rail transit systems in the country, the one that serves the DC metropolitan area, the DC, Maryland, Virginia region. We appreciate and are building upon the FTA's work from late 2015 through early last year. The entire region should be extremely proud that Maryland, Virginia, and the District of Columbia were able to come together to ensure robust, independent safety oversight of Metrorail. Our focus is always continuously improving safety. This report identifies many of the areas where that effort has made substantial impact so far, and other areas where we are requiring Metrorail to make those changes for the future. The Rail Operations Control Center is among the areas of significant concern identified over the past year. It is an area where concerns have been raised before, including when I was chairman of the National Transportation Safety Board, as we investigated the fatal 2015 electrical arcing and smoke event near LaFont Plaza. There are also areas of progress, though, including on Metrorail plans for an improved fatigue management policy. This detailed plan will address a significant concern of mine. The policy will be most effective as part of a true partnership between Metrorail leadership and frontline workers. In total, Metrorail reported 716 safety events in 2019. We ordered the most detailed investigation of a portion of those events with extensive damage or injury, and those that were likely linked to broader trends. Some of those investigations are not yet complete, but we did just discuss the details of one of the most serious events of the year, the collision in the tunnel between Foggy Bottom and Farragut West stations following a Nationals playoff game in October. The Washington Metrorail Safety Commission will continue through investigations of safety events in order to identify ways to continually reduce the risk to customers, workers, and others in the Metrorail system. Safety is not a destination that is reached, but a continuing journey that never stops. So this is a never-ending journey, and kudos to our staff and to the people at WMATA for cooperating and working together on this journey. Dr. Meyer, did you have anything else to add on this report?
Thank you, Chair Hart. We are committed to the safety of every single Metrorail rider, employee, and contractor, as well as anyone else who comes in contact with the system. This report on the safety of the Metrorail system in 2019 gives a high-level snapshot of safety performance in calendar year 2019, and also outlines WMATA's progress on instituting the required top-to-bottom safety management system approach. That approach requires a strong safety culture, with commitment from every single person in the organization and clear communications to drive continuous improvement. Metrorail has made some progress on this through its Department of Quality Assurance, Internal Compliance and Oversight, or QUICO, and its Office of the Inspector General, but there is more to do. On the corrective action plan front, there will never be a day with zero corrective action plans, and there really shouldn't be. That would be an unacceptable sign of complacency all around. Still, the goal is to eliminate or mitigate as many risks as possible, and to do that proactively before a risk manifests itself as a safety event, rather than reactively after something bad has happened. All levels of Metrorail must be open to constructive feedback and communication, both with us as the independent safety oversight and enforcement authority, and with those from the various departments inside WMATA itself. Metrorail is making some significant progress in some areas, but there is much more work to be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Meyer. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners regarding the annual WMATA safety report?
Just a comment on my part. I think you summed up everything very succinctly, Chairman Hart. The report really does demonstrate and indicate the tremendous accomplishments in standing up the commission. There has been a tremendous amount of work that's gone into this, and it's taken a tremendous amount of teamwork from all parties involved, all staff, the commission members, the folks at WMATA supporting us, as well as our three jurisdictions that have given us tremendous support as well.
Thank you for that. As they say, it takes a community. Commissioner Contestable?
Yeah, this is, I would echo those comments by Commissioner Hull. I would also say this is maybe particularly since this is the inaugural year report, if you will, it may require maybe a good opportunity to give this annual report a little more visibility than one might get otherwise. And perhaps each of the commissioners could look to go back to their respective sponsoring agencies, the DOTs or the governor's office or whomever, to take particular care to bring this report to their attention. I think a lot has been accomplished, but it's easy in the sea of boards and commissions that most of our states have to maybe lose track of what we're doing here. And I would encourage our commissioners maybe to take the extra step to reach out to their sponsor base within their respective states to highlight this a bit.
Well, I think that's an excellent suggestion, and especially given the tremendous amount of cooperation it took for the jurisdictions to work together to bring us to help us make this progress that we've made. So I think that's an excellent idea. Any other thoughts, suggestions, comments from any of the commissioners before we vote on these two reports?
I was just going to mention that maybe it can be sent to each of the jurisdictions with a signature from us.
That's a good
In
thought.
addition
Yes,
to our respective jurisdictions.
Sure, we can explore making that happen. We definitely, in accordance with the law, we're planning to send hard copies to each of the jurisdictions.
Yeah, I like the idea of the personal touch from the members from those jurisdictions on this commission. I think that's a great idea.
So maybe when we send it, we have a letter from the commissioners with a signature on it going to jurisdictions, the hard copy.
We can certainly do that.
Thank you for the idea. That's a great suggestion. Okay, I'm going to take these two separately. First, I'm going to start with the annual report of operations and see if there's any motion to approve the annual report of the WMSC operations.
So move.
Commissioner Hall moved. Any second?
Rush seconds.
Commissioner Rush second. The motion's been made and seconded. I will now ask General Counsel Fultz to conduct our recorded vote.
Thank you. Commissioner Bob,
Approved.
Commissioner Contestable,
Approve.
Secretary Treasurer Farrar Dyke,
Approved.
Chairman Hart,
Approve.
Vice Chairman Hull,
Approve.
Alternate Commissioner Al-Khatib, Alternate Commissioner Rush.
Approve.
Great, thank you very much. That motion carries.
Thank you. I will now move to the approval of the annual safety report. Again, I would entertain a motion to approve that.
Rush so moves.
Commissioner Rush moves. Any 1 second?
Second. Bob.
Commissioner Bob seconds. Motion been made and seconded. I will now ask General Counsel Fultz to conduct our recorded vote on the annual safety report.
Thank you. Commissioner Bob,
Approved.
Commissioner Contestable,
Approved.
Secretary Treasurer Farrar Dyke,
Approved.
Chairman Hart,
Approved.
Vice Chairman Hull,
Approved.
Alternate Commissioner Al-Khatib,
Approved.
Alternate Commissioner Rush.
Approve.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Thank you. And again, kudos to the staff for putting both of those excellent reports together. Now turn to the next item on the agenda, which is resolutions. Dr. Meyer, are there any resolutions for business today?
Yes, Chair Hart. Today we have a proposed revision to a part of our program standard that is referred to as the event matrix. This table lists the specific circumstances when Metrorail must provide formal notification of safety events, and it outlines the minimum reports required as follow-ups for each type of event. The WMSC always reserves the right to require additional levels of investigation, but this sets minimum expectations and standards. Our business process specialist, Lahiru Karunaratne, has led the effort to update this matrix, and I would like to turn it over to him to verify I've pronounced his name properly and to explain the rationale behind these changes.
Thank you, Dr. Meyer. These recommended changes are intended to improve our data collection and analysis and to ensure that reporting metrics captures all intended safety events. When we were certified in March 2019, we adopted the existing reporting metrics that the FDA had required WMATA to follow. That decision was made as part of an effort to smooth the oversight transition for both the WMSC and for WMATA. Now that we have more than a year of our own independent experience, we are able to use that experience to revise these metrics to eliminate unnecessary codes, to separate reporting codes to better analyze long-term trends, and to resolve any ambiguities that have been identified. Some of the revisions simplify language, others divide codes that have been lumped together, and others provide new specificity that will ensure all notable incidents are required to be reported in sufficient detail. This is just a brief summary, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. And are there any questions from any of the commissioners regarding the matrix? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to approve Resolution R 2020-06, which adopts the updated event code matrix?
So moved.
So moved. Contestable.
Commissioner Contestable moved. Any second?
Hull, second.
Commissioner Hull, second. I'll turn it over to General Counsel Fultz to take the vote.
Thank you. Commissioner Bob,
Approved.
Commissioner Contestable,
Approved.
Secretary Treasurer Farrar Dyke,
Approved.
Chairman Hart,
Approved.
Vice Chairman Hull,
Approved.
Alternate Commissioner Al-Khatib, Alternate Commissioner Rush.
Approve.
Thank you very much. The motion carries.
Thank you very much. Dr. Meyer, could you present the next resolution regarding procurement.
Yes, sir. This resolution is required by the procurement manual that the WMSC adopted back in December. 2 new procurement actions exceed the $50,000 threshold that requires the approval of the commissioners. The 2 new actions cover legal services and IT support services. The exact values of the contract, of course, are pending final issuance and negotiation. Additionally, we plan to extend a contract that will require commissioner approval due to exceeding the threshold. This is a 6-month extension of our contract with CLA, Clifton Larson Allen, the firm that handles our human resources and accounting services. Happy to answer any questions on the resolution if there are any.
Thank you. Any questions regarding that resolution? The resolution is for all of the above, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Resolution for all activities. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Contestable.
Yeah, just a quick question. Are these amounts listed not to exceed amounts, meaning we may not, these are contract ceilings, we may not spend up to that level?
Yes, we've made our best estimate as to what we'll spend, but I think it's appropriate to regard them as not to exceed values.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Yeah.
Yes, Commissioner Rush.
You've gone on mute.
Sorry, thank you. I forgot the space bar. Let me just follow up a little bit on John's question. So is the legal contract to provide services at an hourly rate with a not to exceed value? In other words, will they'll provide it no matter what the, or put it another way. So in other words, do they have to provide all the work that's required and not to exceed that value? Or is it an hourly rate and we're just budgeting no more money than that?
I think it's fair to regard it as this is the budget that we're establishing for any given contract. In this place, legal services. The services themselves will be billed on an hourly rate as well as any direct costs that might be expended.
Okay, so it's not a not to exceed contract in the way I would view it, which is you'll give us all the work, bill it on an hourly rate, but you can't bill more than this amount. It
does establish a ceiling above which, without a contract amendment, then the firm would not be able to bill us anything additional to the total dollar value.
So just so you know, one option, and I don't know if it's viable here, that we certainly use in my line of work, is that the law firm commits to providing the legal services required, bills on an hourly rate, not to exceed, but they'll provide all the services that are required. It's a little bit of a different twist, and I think that's what John was getting at. So that's another option, potential way of going.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Well, if I might add, as you were asking, Mike, discussing that, it occurs to me too that it's something you may need to research because it'll take a little bit of time to figure this out. But there are often various national buying groups or national organizations contracts that government agencies can piggyback or contract off of. And it may be worth some effort to try to explore and understand what contracts, master contracts may be out there that we could perhaps piggyback. Certainly some of those groups, you know, there are educational consortiums that have national contracts that may not be applicable in our line of work, but it may be helpful to poke around and see what may be out there already negotiated with terms and conditions and so forth to see if they could be leveraged in some fashion by being part of a larger pool. So I think that may be worth looking into over the next few months as these procurement needs come up over our life cycle here.
Yes, by all means, and as I believe I've said, we are using the procurement services of an outsourced expert to prepare these documents and to run these competitions where competitions necessary. And she has already even made reference and use of some, for instance, GSA schedules. So she is much more acquainted than I am personally with the avenues that could be available to us. So we'll certainly pass that along.
Thank you. Any other questions from any of the commissioners? And for the benefit of the commissioners, correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner Farardike, but for the benefit of the commissioners, I would note that this this resolution has already been reviewed by the Finance and Operations Committee?
Well, the reality is no, we didn't do that step, and we should have.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry about that. Commissioner Farrar-Dyke, do you have any issues that we need to address, or are we good to go? You're on mute.
I guess we should proceed at this point.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to approve Resolution R-2020-07 regarding these procurements?
Also move.
Mr. Hall moved. Any second?
Rush seconds.
Mr. Rush second. I will now ask General Counsel Fultz to conduct our recorded vote.
I have a comment, Commissioner Chair.
Yes, please, Commissioner Bob.
Yes, and is there a reason why the contract did not go before the Finance Committee?
Unfortunately, nothing other than my own error in omitting that, sir.
Thank you.
It wasn't intentional.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Shall I proceed with the roll? Any
Yes,
other
please.
comments? Commissioner Bob?
Approve.
Commissioner Contestable?
Approve.
Secretary Treasurer Farrar-Dyke?
Approved.
Chairman Hart?
Approve.
Vice Chairman Hull?
Approve.
Alternate Commissioner Al-Khatib?
Approve.
And alternate Commissioner Rush?
Approve.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you. And we've come to the conclusion of the meeting. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. I want to thank the staff for preparing this meeting to go as well as it did in these unprecedented circumstances. And we seem to keep the ball rolling, and I'm excited at how well you're able to do that. So thank you for all of that. I would again like to remind everyone that you can always report any concerns or otherwise get in touch through our website, wmsc.gov, through social media channels like Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, or by email. If there is no other business, and let me, I guess, ask one last time, does any commissioner have any thoughts, comments, suggestions, concerns before we close today's meeting? Yes, Commissioner. Yes, Dr. Meyer.
Yeah, I'm not a commissioner, but I did just want to express my sincere appreciation to the whole team. Producing these meetings is it takes a village activity under normal circumstances, and even more so when we add the remote technology to it. So this has been a pretty full agenda, and the entire team has pulled the weight to get this done. So my thanks to the team.
And I certainly concur with that, and they produced an outstanding result. I appreciate that. If there's no other business, that concludes our public meeting for today. We plan to hold our next public meeting of the Commissioners on Tuesday, August the 4th. So I would ask, is there a motion to adjourn today's meeting?
So moved, Rush.
Contestable?
Contestable, second.
Second, Bob.
Oh,
Commissioner Bob, second. I would now ask General Counsel Fultz to call the roll.
Commissioner Bob?
Approve.
Commissioner Contestable?
Approve.
Secretary Treasurer Farrar-Dyke?
Approved.
Chairman Hart?
Approved.
Vice Chairman Hull?
Approve.
Alternate Commissioner Al-Khatib?
Approve.
And alternate Commissioner Hull. Rush.
Approve.
Thank you.
Thank you. The meeting is now adjourned, and I adjourn this remote meeting with my remote gavel. And please stay safe, everyone.
Be safe.